This is Server Talk with Alexi and Mike, helping demystifying computing so you can make the best decisions in your business.
All right, welcome to episode 3 of Server Talk. I'm here with Alexi. I'm Mike. Alexi, how have things been going, man?
They've been going pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. We've launched 2 of our episodes already. They've been getting some traction, and let's see where the third one goes.
Yeah, well, so far we've got all of, I believe, 17 listen-throughs. So half of those at least are me. Just checking up, but I'm glad we've gotten the ball rolling on this project. So how do you feel about it?
I feel great. Just working out the kinks, just making sure the sound quality sounds good. But we're getting there.
Yeah, and if you're just joining in, if this is the first episode, or rather, if you've already listened to the first 2 episodes, podcast 2, we had some microphone issues, and we apologize for the quality. It was not the best, but these are learning pains for us, so bear with us. Anyway, so today's topic is going to be RAID, and we're going to get into that. But first, we want to kind of structure the podcast a little bit so that there's more of a structured format. And we're actually going to talk about ICC news first. So, Alexi, what's new at ICC?
So the big new thing is that we've launched the new website. It has 2 portions to it. It has products and solutions. We mostly give configurations and just different things for different industries and so on. Mm-hmm. Where products is just straight up products for the techie people who don't want any of the marketing jargon.
Yeah, I got a chance to play around with the site a little bit, and I saw that the configurator is pretty sick.
Yep, it's a homebrew configurator. It looks at all the products are what we have internally and figures it, does compatibility checks and so on.
Uh-huh. So would you say this is a big upgrade over what the site was like, before? Let's say yesterday or the day before or whatever?
Well, we've always had the configurator, but we keep on adding more and more features to it. One of the features that we're working on next is the power measurements, and we hit power one of the earlier episodes, and just to show that it's important, we're going to slowly add it to our website.
Cool. All right, let's get on with industry news. So what's been going on in the wide world of servers?
Not much development. There's a little bit of SSD shortage, primarily due to not enough NAD.
What's NAD?
It's the actual chips, the memory chips that the SSDs are made out of.
Okay.
The reason why there's a shortage is there's a huge demand, and only 3 manufacturers make them, and so a lot of people are going over to SSDs, and now there's a shortage.
Mm-hmm. I remember there was some storm in Thailand a couple years ago, and it caused some short. Is this related in any way?
Not at all.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear, Alexi.
Yep.
All right. Anything else interesting?
Not that I can tell.
All right. Next week, guys. Next week. Anyway, all right. On to our main segment. So today we're talking about RAID. Alexi, hit it. What's RAID all about?
RAID. So RAID actually stands for Redundant Array of Independent Disks. Mm-hmm. And what that basically means is, well, how do you group your hard drives so you get performance and redundancy? How do you do it, Mike?
Well, I would put them in some sort of, I don't know. Alexi, why are you asking me? You're the expert, so.
I just want to see how you would react.
As you get a very confused reaction.
Yep.
All right, so how exactly do you configure them? I know that there's 7 different, infinite number of ways? How many ways are there?
No, there's probably about 10 different ways, but I would say only 3 or 4 are the most popular ways. Mm-hmm. And there's really a few key benefits of RAID. As I mentioned earlier, performance and redundancy. So we can get into the different RAID levels. Some of the more popular RAID levels are RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, RAID 6, and RAID 10.
All right. Are we going to cover each of those in this podcast?
We are.
Excellent. All right.
So RAID 0, what that basically means is taking 2 hard drives and striping them. What striping them means is just taking the data and writing across both of them. And the performance, it increases a lot, but also your redundancy, completely gone. What that means is if you lose a disk, you're screwed.
Okay. So is this a common configuration?
Not at all, unless you have backups and you're just straightly looking for performance.
Okay.
The next configuration is a RAID 1, which is called a mirror. You basically have 2 hard drives and they're an identical copy of each other. Performance is not as good as a RAID 0, but redundancy is much better because you have a full copy.
Okay, so let's slow down for a second there. So you mentioned that somebody getting a RAID 0 is looking strictly for performance, right?
Yep.
So what kind of a company or organization, for what application would you be looking strictly for performance and not care so much about redundancy?
Well, it gets a little tricky, but the reality of it is companies that need a lot of performance, which is say like financial companies or someone doing like an HPC system, and then they have a backup of their data.
Mm-hmm.
Most of these companies either are not worried about their data, meaning if they lose it, they can duplicate
Restore it, okay.
or restore it, or they have another backup. Maybe this is operational data that they're only working with at the time, and then they have a backup of it somewhere else.
Okay. And as opposed to a RAID 1, so what kind of organizations? I'm assuming that these will be organizations where speed is not so important, but the backup, the dependability of the system is more important, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so what kind of companies would that?
From your general, computer at home, if you don't want the headache of, we all know when the hard drive goes, all your data is gone, everyone's worried about their pictures and so on. From your general desktop at home to even a server where just a company has their operating system and they don't want the headache of something happening. RAID 1 does the job, as long as there's not a lot of performance requirements, your data's backed up.
Okay.
So the next RAID that we're going to talk about is a RAID 5. We covered RAID 0, RAID 1, now RAID 5. RAID 5 is 2 drives plus a parity, which means it's a total of a minimum of 3 drives.
Mm-hmm.
And what a parity is, it's just the way the RAID calculates the information that it writes. In simple words of explaining it, this is really dumbed down, but it's made just for simple purposes. Imagine you're writing information in 3 different areas. And, you knew what came before, you knew what came after the drive you're missing. So imagine you're writing the information in 3 different areas. And imagine you lose one of those drives, say the one in the middle. Well, you knew the information that came before, you knew the information that came after. You can recover that missing information.
Okay, so the system just some sort of internal logic can figure out the missing pieces that would connect the connective tissue between the 2 other drives?
That's correct. It's actually a math calculation just by where it writes that parity.
Okay.
But I'm not going to get into that. Just if someone's really interested, they can Wikipedia it.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe we should put up an article on ICC, on Insights, and explain this interesting phenomenon,
That's possible.
All right, we'll mark that down.
I think people are more interested in making sure that their data is okay and they can access it quick.
Right.
So where RAID 5 comes in. RAID 5, it gives you the redundancy, so you can lose a disk, and it gives you more performance than a mirror. What RAID 5 also allows you to do is grow it aside from just 2 disks, where mirror is only 2 disks. RAID 5, you can grow up to as many disks that the RAID controller can handle. Usually you don't want to go, usually it'll be like 30 disks, or 5 to 30 disks, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you lose one of them, you can recover it. Well, certain companies are afraid of even losing one of those disks. So you know what they do next?
What do they do?
It's called RAID 6.
RAID 6. It's an upgrade from RAID 5.
Yep. It's called double parity. So basically same concept, but now you have 2 parities, you can lose 2 disks. And it's minimum of 4 disks in that RAID technology.
Okay.
It's a little bit slower, but a little bit more redundancy. The last most popular RAID technology is called the RAID 10. RAID 10 consists of RAID 1 and RAID 0. Basically, you have 2 RAID 1s, and then they're striped together with a RAID 0, giving you the redundancy of a RAID 1 and the performance of a RAID 0.
Okay. I'm just going to have to imagine that it works because I understand each one individually, but when the idea of putting them together, I conceptually don't really understand. Can you go into that a little bit more, or am I
Sure.
It's something I need to study more?
No, imagine, let's draw out a few different blocks. Let's draw 4 different blocks. The 2 on the left are going to be blue color blocks.
Okay.
The 2 on the right are going to be yellow color blocks.
Okay.
The different blocks are different mirror sets. So those are mirrored drives. So if you lose one blue block, you're still okay with another blue block.
Mm-hmm.
If you lose one yellow block, you're still okay with the other yellow block.
Gotcha.
Right? So now we have these 2 sets of blocks. And now we're going to stripe them together like a RAID 0 to give us that performance.
Mm-hmm.
Remember RAID 0 gives us that performance?
Yeah.
Right? So you have the redundancy on the mirror for each block set. Right, and then you have the performance with the stripe across the different blocks.
Gotcha. Okay, that's actually a really good visualization. I can see it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the big things to consider when choosing a RAID technology is, again, your redundancy levels, your performance, and also something we call efficiency. What efficiency is how much disk space am I going to lose by choosing a specific technology? For example, since RAID 10, you have an identical copy in each block set. You have an identical copy, so you're basically losing half of your disks, right?
Yeah.
So it's 50% cost to get that.
Gotcha.
Right? RAID 5, you're only losing one disk. RAID 6, you're losing two disks. So, but RAID 10 is going to give you that performance. So you got to choose, well, how much performance do you really need? How much redundancy do you really need? And how much are you willing to spend?
Right. I gotcha. So what's the most expensive configuration? The RAID 10?
RAID 10.
RAID 10 is the most expensive?
Yep.
Right.
We can also get into RAID 50 and RAID 60.
Do you want to get into it?
They're not very popular, but they do exist.
I'm assuming it's, just going by the naming convention, I'm assuming it's a RAID 5 with the RAID 0?
Yep.
And a RAID 6 with the RAID 0?
Yep, it's two RAID 5s striped together, or two RAID 6s striped together.
Okay. Logical.
Yep. So those get a little bit more expensive, but actually RAID 10 is still not, RAID 10 is probably going to be the most expensive and gives you the best.
Alright, you mentioned a RAID controller somewhere along the line.
That's correct.
Is this something that you would like to discuss?
RAID controllers are actually very important. So RAID controller is that device that groups the drives together. RAID controller is also the device that calculates the parity. RAID device also can give you a boost in performance because it has cache or memory on the actual controller. And so the items that, or the files that you'll be accessing a lot could be cached on the controller, so it wouldn't have to go out to spinning disks every single time. Typically, right now, RAID controllers run between 512 megs of cache to a gig, which is not a lot. But there's new technologies where you can add an SSD to increase that cache, and we're seeing that development more and more.
And are you selling this technology yet, or is it like really in development?
No, it is available. It's a license key for different RAID controllers, and then you just throw in the SSD. And there's a logarithm that, however it calculates and stores the files that you're accessing a lot in SSD.
Okay.
So big benefits are primarily in databases. So people who have a lot of little files, they can see huge benefits from adding cache. If you're using big files like video streaming or something like that, you're not going to see a lot of benefit.
Okay.
So there's only a few companies who make RAID controllers or internal RAID controllers. The biggest one is probably LSI. They make the RAID controller. There's another one called Adaptec, which has recently been purchased by PMC Sierra. Those are really the two surviving companies who make these RAID controllers.
Cool. Anything else about RAID that you'd like to cover in this specific episode? I mean, we could always come back.
Yeah, it's a pretty brief / detailed overview of it's a short detailed overview of what RAID is.
Okay, so let's say I'm ordering a server. First of all, does every server need a RAID configuration?
No.
Do most servers need RAID configuration? I know, depending on the use, it's obviously. But
you got it. So
of course, I mean everything's obviously going to be dependent on the function. But I'm saying, like, just as far as the servers that ICC sells, like, what percentage would you say need a RAID configuration? What I mean, do most? Is it 90%,
we're split all over the
20%?
place. I'd say we're about 50-50.
Okay.
Certain customers do get RAID controllers, certain ones do not. The reason for it, again, is the functionality, exactly what you're doing. Certain customers, they don't need it. Their data is stored in a separate system, and they don't need any local storage.
Okay.
So they don't need a RAID controller. Certain customers want a whole bunch of local storage, and they do need that RAID controller. So it really depends on who the customer is, what they're doing, and so on. We've actually found that the most visited page on our website and the most popular page is our RAID calculator. It calculates, well, you choose what size drive, what RAID level you want, and it tells you how much usable space you're going to get.
All right, perfect. Now, let me ask you this kind of weird question. Do you get customers that say they don't need a RAID controller when you clearly know that they need a RAID controller, and you're like, what are you guys doing? No, just get the RAID controller, like, you guys are taking an unnecessary risk. Like, do you get these kinds of situations?
Definitely, yeah. And that happens. Usually the customer is either trying to meet a very difficult price point or is not educated enough in terms of what they actually need.
Yeah, and they probably accuse you of, like, unnecessary salesmanship when you try to convince them, like, guys, you need backup here, Like,
well, I'll let them actually try it out or spell it out for them. You lose a drive.
That's it, you're done.
Yeah.
You're done, son.
Yeah, so most people can afford several $100s just to make sure that their business is stable and they're not down.
Yeah, I would hope so. All right, I think that's probably enough about RAID for me.
Did you get it? What are the different rate levels?
0, 1, 5, 6, 10, 50, 60, and then exactly how they differ.
That's fair enough.
All right, so we're closing out this episode. Thank you so much for listening. We hope to make this show, big within the server community, as small as the server community is. So thank you, Alexi.
Thanks for joining.
That's right.
Let us know some ideas.
Where are your manners? You almost didn't say goodbye.
I always say goodbye, as long as I make it there.
Yeah. All right. So take it easy, and you'll hear us from next week. And remember, always go to icc-usa.com. Check out the new website.
This has been Server Talk with Alexi and Mike. For more information on anything related to servers, please visit www.icc-usa.com.